Welcome to the first Masterclass of 2026, proudly brought to you by BEX Asia. This Masterclass is the first of five Masterclasses that we've lined up in 2026 and is done in partnership with our various BEX Asia exhibitors. My name is Suhaimi and I will be your host today. Before we begin, allow me to tell you a little about BEX Asia and IBEW. BEX Asia is the largest built environment exhibition in Singapore with a solid focus on digitalization, innovation, and sustainability. Our 19th edition this year will take place from the 2nd to the 4th of September at Marina Bay Sands, and we are expecting over 300 exhibitors and more than 10,000 attendees. BEX Asia, of course, runs alongside Southeast Asia's largest built environment conference, the International Built Environment Week, jointly organized by the Building and Construction Authority and RX Singapore. This year's theme of empowering people, accelerating intelligence, will put the focus squarely on topics that are making its impact felt in the industry, namely AI and its use cases in the built environment, preparing our talent to be ready for the AI transformation, and of course, sustainability. Happening from the 2nd to the 4th of September, also at Marina Bay Sands. Do make sure you follow our LinkedIn pages for BEX Asia and IBEW to stay updated, and as we reveal IBEW's impactful speakers in the coming weeks. Now, speaking of impactful speakers, I am very pleased to welcome Rogier Rolvenik, who will lead today's masterclass. Rogier is the Asia Pacific Industry and Customer Engagement Director at Oracle Construction and Engineering. In this role, he supports clients throughout the region in digital transformation, in planning, building, and operating in the built environment. Rogier has extensive management advisory experience and a passion for informed decision making. He has experience delivering benefits to many clients from a diversified background, working across a broad range of projects, clients, and sectors. He continuously advises and supports organizations in project operations through digitalization. Rogier will be leading our masterclass today titled Project Controls 6.0, Project Controls for Capital Project Works. Now, the governance of capital projects is often challenged by divergent objectives and success criteria of the two primary contracting parties, the project owner and the project deliverer, who is the contractor. While traditional project control paradigms frequently assumed a unified approach in a best case scenario, we can also argue that such a model is insufficient to manage the inherent goal disparity and information asymmetry that defines this relationship. We therefore will present a framework for differentiated project controls tailored to the unique imperatives of these two key stakeholders, which has relevance, of course, in Singapore, especially as we are pushing adoption of collaborative contracting. Environments where shared objectives, transparency, and aligned decision-making are central to success. This webinar offers a nuanced model for project governance and acknowledges and manages the divergent interests inherent in capital works, aiming to enhance transparency, improve strategic decision-making, and foster more successful project outcomes for all stakeholders. So, let me now welcome Rogier on screen. Rogier, could you turn on? Hello there. How are you?
I'm good, Sir Jaime. Thanks for that introduction.
And as we were chatting, you were also looking forward to a long weekend. I understand in Australia you got Friday
Yes,
and Monday off.
Friday and Monday off. So, yes, all good.
Well, in Singapore, we only have Friday off, but I'm looking at our attendees, and we have actually not just Singaporeans here today. We have a diverse range of attendees from as far as Southeast Asia. We have people from Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia. We also appear to have someone here from Abu Dhabi, and amazingly, someone also from the US. I guess if you're in the US, thank you very much. Shout out for you to joining us in such a ungodly time in the US at the hour. All right. Now, Rohir, are you all ready to take us through this masterclass here today?
My show ready, Sir Jaime.
All right, then I'll hand it over to you. Now, before we do that, though, ladies and gentlemen, some housekeeping announcements. This masterclass is scheduled for 1 hour. We will be taking questions at the end of the masterclass. Some of you have already submitted your questions during registrations. We'll take those at the end of the masterclass. If you'd like to ask questions during this masterclass today, use the Q&A function found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And with that, Rohia, let me hand this masterclass over to you.
Thank you, Sir Jaime, and hello, everybody, and particular hearty welcome to those that turn up at very strange hours in the day and night. Hopefully, it's worth your while. So, Project Control 6.0 is about reclaiming control of project outcomes by being honest about one uncomfortable truth. The owner and the deliverer rarely look at the same project through the same lens, even when they are bound by the same contract, the same milestones, and the same dashboards of KPIs. Please don't go and Google or whatever search engine you prefer to use project controls 1.0 through 5.9 because they won't exist. You won't find them. Why I call the project control 6.0 will become evident shortly. Owner and delivery teams appear to share a common goal. Complete the project to agreed performance parameters for cost, time, scope, risk, resources, and where stipulated sustainability. But their motivations diverge the moment money, risk, and reputation are on the line. In a world of complex capital works, digital data, and collaborative contracting frameworks, Project Control 6.0 challenges us to acknowledge this divergence and to design our controls, contracts, and culture around it. Today, organizations are navigating an increasingly complex project landscape, balancing cost, schedule, scope, risk, resources, and sustainability targets. Whether you are the project owner or the project partner, the delivery partner, the challenge remains the same: achieve intended outcomes within defined performance parameters. However, it is essential to recognize that the perspective of an owner organization differs fundamentally from that from a delivery organization, regardless of whether the project contract is traditional, design build, alliance, or a collaborative contract like NEC4 or FIDIC or the Singaporean government equivalent of PSS-COC. At its core, a project is a formal agreement between two primary parties, the owner and the deliverer. The owner seeks the best possible outcome for the lowest justifiable whole-of-life cost. The deliverer seeks to meet contractual obligations while maximizing profit by delivering the minimal acceptable outcome within the agreed constraints. This structural tension exists under every contract form: lump sum, cost plus, alliance, or any collaborative form of contract like NEC4. And no contract type magically removes the underlying difference in organizational motivation. Even if collaborative contracts such as NEC4 or FIDICs are formed with partnering provisions, they can align incentives better, but they do not erase the fact that each organization answers to a different balance sheet, shareholder set, and risk appetite. In practice, this means that when we talk about what is best for a project, the owner and deliverer may be using the same words, but applying very different mental models. Owners optimize for long-term value, resilience, social license, and service performance. Deliverers optimize for bid margin, cash flow, resource utilization, and safe contractual compliance. Treating this divergence as a problem to hide rather than a reality to design for creates the conditions for disputes, claims, and adversarial behavior that no amount of contractual boilerplate can fully repair. Project Control 6.0 starts by recognizing this difference in the lens that these two parties apply as a design input, not as an afterthought. Regardless of the contract form, every project is governed by the same 6 project control levers: time, cost, scope, resources, risk, and sustainability. These are not optional extras. They are the constituent components of project quality and success, and they exist for both owner and deliverer. Time, as you all know, is expressed through schedule and milestones, effective scheduling, monitoring to keep the project progressing as planned. Cost is expressed through budgets, forecast and cash flows, estimation, tracking, cost management to prevent overruns and disputes. Scope is expressed through defined requirements, managing and approving changes and variations to ensure intended performance targets are achieved. Resources are expressed through people, plant, materials, and capability, aligning personnel, equipment, and materials without bottleneck or waste. Risk is expressed through uncertainty, threats, and opportunities, proactively identifying and mitigating threats to the project outcomes. And sustainability is expressed through environmental, social, and governance outcomes embedded into the brief and design, integrating and measuring relevant targets for design to handover. The discipline of project control is the art and science of balancing these 6 levers in the best interest of controlling organizations while still complying with contractual obligations. For the owner, this means ensuring the adjustment to cost, time, or scope do not undermine long-term value, resilience, or sustainability. For the deliverer, it means navigating the same levers to protect margin, cash flow, and corporate risk, while still meeting the owner's performance expectations. When either party treats one lever as infinitely flexible, for example, treating time as elastic, scope as negotiable, or sustainability as nice to have, the balance collapses and project performance deteriorates. To navigate this complexity, Project Control 6.0 identifies these 6 key levers. So at a portfolio level, an owner must monitor and analyze both individual and collective project data. Early warnings of cost increases, risk accumulations, or supply chain disruptions enable strategic decisions, preventing overstretching of resources or impacting organizational liquidity. For deliverers, portfolio control guarantees compliance, meets obligations, and allows confident performance reporting even across diverse projects and contract types, including collaborative forms of contracting. Project Control 6.0 reframes the central question for both owner and deliverer project controllers. How do you know that you know? It is not enough to report that performance is on track. Leaders must be able to demonstrate with evidence that a project is genuinely operating within the intended parameters of time, cost, scope, resources, risk, and sustainability within the context of their respective lenses. That confidence comes from the right combination of people, process, and technology, clear governance, disciplined practices, and fit-for-purpose tools that capture and connect data from the field to the boardroom. In collaborative contracting environments, this "how do you know that you know" question becomes shared rather than adversarial. Under frameworks like NEC4, FIDIC, with their respective collaborative mechanisms, early warning systems, joint risk registers, and shared performance dashboards create a common view of reality over the 6 levers. The owner and deliverer still have different objectives, but they work from the same data and the same definition of truth about schedule, cost, risk, and sustainability performance. This shared evidence base is the foundation of Project Control 6.0. Within programs, Project Control enable resources and fund reassignment, risk redistribution, and supply chain efficiency. Owners can assess what-if scenarios for informed decisions, while deliverers remain vigilant on commitments and can adapt to changing project circumstances, all while maintaining performance across schedule, cost, and sustainability under a unified contract framework, including collaborative arrangements designed to better align goals and foster transparency. In 2026, Project Control in Capital Works is a fully fledged discipline that uses integrated processes and digital tools to manage and monitor all 6 constituent components of project success. Planning and scheduling systems manage time, cost estimation, cost management, and claims tools manage cost. Requirements, change control, manage scope. Workforce and asset management tools manage resources. Risk platforms manage threats and opportunities, and sustainability metrics track environmental and social performance from design through commissioning and handover. The goal is not to create more reports, but to generate timely, accurate, and actionable insight that supports intervention before variances become crises. Project Control team, whether embedded in the owner or the deliverer, is responsible for maintaining and updating the schedule, tracking and managing the cost, monitoring progress, identifying and mitigating risk, and communicating performance to stakeholders. Success is reflected in on-time completion, within budget delivery, effective risk management, controlled scope, efficient resource use, and demonstrable sustainable performance. Collaborative contracts amplify this responsibility by expecting both parties to share data, align on baselines, jointly manage early warnings, and mitigate actions. Under Project Control 6.0, these expectations are not aspirational. They are built into the way projects are planned, monitored, and governed. The increasing adoption of collaborative contracts like the PSSCOC, NEC4, and FIDIC underscores the criticality of joint project control. In these frameworks, owner and deliverer organizations are encouraged to align incentives and share real-time data using common tools, processes, and performance metrics to achieve mutual success. However, both parties must still safeguard their own interest. Project control in this context is not only about compliance, but also about transparency, early intervention, and the ability to answer with confidence. How do you know that you know performance is as reported? To translate this into practice, we must distinguish explicitly between owner-side project control and deliverer-side project control. While both are concerned with the same 6 levers, they serve different masters and operate under different constraints. An owner project controller exists to safeguard the owner's interests, ensuring that performance against time, cost, scope, resources, risk, and sustainability is understood, challenged, and steered in line with organizational objectives, not just contractual minimums. In contrast, a deliverer project controller exists to safeguard the deliverer's interest, protecting commercial margins, managing risk exposure, and ensuring contractual compliance while still delivering acceptable outcomes. Importantly, fulfilling the project control function does not always require a dedicated full-time individual. It can be integrated into roles such as the owner's project manager, or on the delivery side, the project or construction manager, depending on project size and complexity. However, clarity of the role and accountability is essential, especially in collaborative contracts where blurred responsibilities can quickly erode trust. The owner project controller must be distinguished from the superintendent, whose role, although appointed by the owner, is to act independently in administering the contract. When owner organizations outsource project management and superintendent roles, they must ask whether an external party can truly protect their interest across schedule, cost, scope, risk, resources, and sustainability. And again, always must answer, how do you know that you know? Achieving Project Control 6.0 requires coordination across 3 dimensions. The right people, roles clearly defined, recognizing the distinct responsibility of owner project controller, superintendent, and deliverer project controller. The right processes, consistent frameworks for progress measurement and reporting. The right technology, integrated systems and automation to provide reliable, real-time, where necessary, data and actionable insights informing decision-making and supporting both owner and deliverer confidence. Success outcomes for project control are measured by on-time completion, adherence to budget, effective scope and risk management, resource proficiency, delivery of sustainability commitments. These outcomes are typically more attainable under collaborative contracting models, where shared objectives and open information accelerate corrective action and innovation. Project Control 6.0 therefore scales both the 3 dimensions and success outcomes across 3 levels for both owner, deliverable, in project, program, and portfolio. This is where Project Control 6.0 becomes clear. We've already talked about 6 control levers. These are the 6 different roles of project controls. At a project level, the focus is on performance of a single initiative. At program level, on the coordination of multiple related projects delivering a common outcome. At portfolio level, on the strategic balance of many projects and programs against organizational risk, capital, and capability. For owners, these layers safeguard organizational objectives: financial, operational, reputational objectives across numerous projects in various lifecycle changes. For deliverers, they protect organizational liquidity, margin, risk posture, and capacity across diverse jurisdictions, contract types, sectors, and clients. An owner portfolio project control function monitors the collective status of all projects against budget, schedules, and targeted outcomes, drawing on current point-in-time data for cost, scope, schedule, risk, resources, and sustainability. It provides early warning of cost increases that may stress liquidity, risk materialization that threatens stakeholder comfort, supply chain performance issues that could cascade across projects, and schedule impacts that could alter cash flow or time to value. With the right data, the owner can test the impact of starting a new project, changing phasing, or reallocating resources before making commitments. This is project portfolio level project control 6.0 in action. Evidence-based decisions that minimize risk exposure and maximize portfolio returns. On the delivery side, portfolio project control plays a similarly critical role, but with a different vantage point, a different lens. A deliverer portfolio control function monitors performance across all projects in the portfolio to ensure obligations are met, risks are controlled, and targeted margins remain achievable. It assesses schedule, cost, scope, risk, resources, and sustainability performance across a mix of contracts, asset classes, clients, regions, potentially everywhere, providing early warning of cost growth, risk accumulation, supply chain issues, and schedule changes that might stretch capital or human resources or limit the ability to provide parent company guarantees. This allows deliverers to decide whether to pursue or defer new tenders, rebalance workloads, or renegotiate terms while they still have options. Data and information flowing from projects and programs up into the organization enables proactive direction flowing back down. Instead of reacting to crises project by project, deliverers can adjust risk appetite, resource allocation, and commercial strategy at portfolio scale. In collaborative contracting settings, sharing selected portfolio level insights such as capacity constraints or systemic supply chain issues with owners can support joint decision-making on phasing, packaging, or innovation that benefits both parties. Between portfolio and projects at program levels, where multiple projects contribute to a shared outcome such as a precinct, a corridor, or a network upgrade. Owner program project control is similar to owner portfolio project control, but focused on program alone, seeking economies of scale, cross-project optimization, and coordinated risk management. It enables reassignment of resources between projects to manage peaks and troughs, redistribution of funds, and contingencies to protect program-level budgets and timelines, and governance of supply chain performance across shared vendors. Crucially, it allows what-if analysis of scenarios, such as delays in key projects or changes to sustainability requirements and their impact on the program's overall outcomes. Deliverer program project control mirrors this role on the contractor side. It ensures that within a program of works, the deliverer meets obligations, manages risks, and maintains profitability at the program level, not just for each individual project. It supports reallocation of teams and equipment, program-wide management of risk and contingency, and leveraging supply chain efficiency, all while respecting contractual commitments to the owners. In collaborative contract arrangements, joint program control forms, drawing on shared data across time, cost, scope, resources, risk and responsibility and sustainability become the engine room for aligned decision making and issue resolution. Project Control 6.0 therefore becomes not just an internal management tool, but a strategic interface between owner and deliverer portfolios. In summary, Project Control 6.0 combines discipline, technology, and collaboration to balance the interests of both owner and deliverer, maximize outcomes, minimize risks in every project environment, even amidst increasing complexity and contract innovation. The path to project excellence is illuminated by 6 robust controls of time, cost, scope, resources, risk, sustainability, guided by clear data, timely analysis, and a spirit of partnership. When we bring the project, program, and portfolio layers together for owner and deliverer, we see 6 distinct but interdependent project control functions, all working within the same 6 levers. Project Control 6.0 insists that we design processes, systems, and collaborative mechanisms that acknowledge the dual lens reality and the multi-level nature of control. Owners must ensure that their project, program, and portfolio controllers have the authority, data, and tools to challenge delivery performance in the owner's interest, not just tick contractual boxes. Deliverers must equip their control functions with integrated data, automation, and analytics to manage obligations, protect margins, and support transparent performance discussions with owners. Technology is a powerful ally in this transformation, but only when aligned with clear roles and disciplined practices. Automation, integrated platforms, and advanced analytics can provide a single source of truth that underpins the answer, how do you know that you know? But they must be configured to capture and connect data on time, cost, scope, resources, risk, and sustainability at every level for both parties. In collaborative contracting environments, shared digital workspaces, joint dashboards, and agreed data standards make it possible for both owner and deliverer to see the same project reality and act on it together, even while each remains accountable to their own organization's objectives. That is the essence of Project Control 6.0, an honest recognition of different lenses anchored by common levers, shared evidence, and deliberately collaborative control. Thanks very much for your time and your attention. I look forward to your questions and further discussion.
All right, thanks, Jorge. I think you touched on something that is very interesting because I was looking through our attendee list. We have quite a number of developers and project owners, as well as main contractors from the region. So I even see a data center owner here in our attendee list. And I guess for data centers, with the speed to build that they're under pressure, this becomes even more of a pressing issue, right? There's that huge demand for AI-powered data centers, and the timelines that the clients want this to be delivered is so short, and they put the contractors under a lot of pressure.
Yes, I agree. I'm not sure if there was a question in that statement, but yes. But often the restriction isn't necessarily the resources of the contract. It's regulation, planning processes, power supply, water supply. Sometimes those are the more time-consuming aspects than the actual building of the data center asset, and or what goes inside the data center. The demand of that and manufacture of that is often very time-consuming as well, rather than the building of the shell, for want of a better word.
That's right. Now, and I think you also mentioned here that very, very early on that there's always this different lenses between the owner and the deliverer, right? But practically, you touched on how it's important to have the right people, the right processes, technology. But practically, how could you actually reduce disputes? Is it just by saying that, I'm as a contractor, I'm giving you heads up that this is going to happen, this is going to be an issue? Will that just be reduced dispute? Because me as a contractor telling my project owner, or rather my client, that, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to be delayed by a week. That may not be necessarily something that the owner might be willing to accept, and that they could still raise a dispute. Well, practically, how would you reduce disputes?
Well, it's disputes arise from uncertainty,
Mm,
from a lack of trust in data and information. So if I give you your scenario, you're the contractor and you said, I just a heads up, we're going to be a week delayed.
mhm.
Um, as a owner, I'm going to go like, but why?
Why?
What has happened? What has justifiably happened that we are going to be a week delayed? How do we solve it?
Mhm,
What can we do to prevent the delay from occurring, because the delay is not good? And this is exactly where the six levers come in. So if you think back probably 2 decades, maybe even longer than 2 decades, when we were talking about the quality of a project is the balance between time, cost, and scope. And it was the old triangle, the iron triangle, it was called at the time, that says they all need to be in balance and you can move them up and down. But if you move cost up, something else will have to go down, or they are in sync. What I'm saying with the six levers of project control is exactly the same, except for three, we now have six. And
mhm,
not only do we have six, we have six that are looked at through a different lens. So as the contractor says, the delay, the time needs to be extended. What's the compromise? What's the data on which that is based? And do I, as the owner, trust that statement, trust that data, and therefore can accept the statement as okay, acceptable? No, not acceptable. So fundamentally, it comes down to trust. And trust comes from having the right people, the right tools, doing the right things, the right processes, and having agreed what they are upfront, being transparent about it, understanding who can adjust data, who can access data, who can change reports, so that I, as the owner, know, yeah, only the right people with the right level of authority doing the right things can come to the conclusion that a week delay is what is where we ended up. And that reduces the dispute. But just the pure statement of giving that early. So, like, hey, I know that at the end we're going to be a week delay, and I'm telling you 50% through the project, that doesn't necessarily remove the dispute side of
mhm.
that statement.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, you can also drop them in the Q&A using the Q&A function found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let me take this question that came during registration. And I think you alluded to it earlier, right? For example, when you mentioned, okay, so there's time, cost, risk, scopes, resource, and sustainability. And you also mentioned in data centers, for example, there's different regulations. So one of the questions here is, what's the difference in project controls issues that you see across Southeast Asian countries? And if I look at it, for example, sustainability, there's so many different sustainability standards around the region, how much you need to comply. And if you have, say, for example, for the first time, the owner is working with a contractor for the first time in a new country, that could also mean there's differences in culture, and differences in the way they work. So what have you seen in the way different Southeast Asian countries manage project controls, and how would you advise, what's the best practices that a common standard that everyone can agree upon?
But specific to Southeast Asia, I
Mm-hmm.
think the biggest difference is digital maturity across the supply chain, not just on the owner side or not just on the main contractor side. It's across the supply chain. That's the biggest differentiator between the different parts of Southeast Asia. And well, obviously, you're all familiar with the level of digital maturity across Southeast Asia, and sometimes even within countries, individual countries, within organizations within that country, within the Southeast Asia region. There are some big, large conglomerate organizations that have a high level of digital maturity, that build globally on a global scale, dealing with global stakeholders all of the time, to local construction projects enforced by local parties, but maybe lesser digital maturity. Now, the fact that we have different rules and regulations across different countries is almost irrelevant to the practice of project controls. The project is controlled based on the specific unique set of requirements applicable to that project. And whatever is applicable to that project is dependent on its geographic location, the scope, the specification of that project. What are you building? The regulations for a hospital are very different than a data center, are very different than a school or a railway. Yeah. So the project determines the parameters and the success metric through its specification, its geographic location, the regulations that therefore are applicable, guidance, everything like that. What Project Control 6.0 does is make sure that everybody understands those and understands what good looks like on that project in that particular scenario. And we all agree what that is and why that is the case and why we may not be able to compromise on a sustainability standard in Singapore, whereas we might be able to compromise on that sustainability standard in Vietnam. I'm not saying, by the way, Faisal, that sustainability is better looked after in Singapore than Vietnam. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the regulations are different, the expectations are different, and therefore the ability to potentially deliver and move the 6 levers at a different rate is different project by project. But the levers are still the same. It's still time, cost, scope, risk, resources, and sustainability. All 6 apply. Which one and to what extent you can move them within each project is dependent on the project, its geographic location, the specs, specifications, and the scope, and the regulations that it's subject to. Hopefully that answered the question. If not, please, person who asked the question, ask a follow-up in the chat.
That's right. You can always use the Q&A function found at the bottom of the screen in your Zoom window. Now, these 2 questions, let me combine them. The first, Rohia, you keep saying, how do I know that I know? So it brought me this, that joke you always hear on the movies. I know that you know that I know, right?
Yes.
But what it should be in a definition of truth for reporting, such that both parties will trust this? And how do you then communicate if there's any negative project performance data to the stakeholders?
Well, firstly, let me give you a little background as where how do you know that you know comes from. So how do you know that you know comes from my youngest son education. Quite a few years ago, as they do in school, they ask children to do a little project. And then they have to create a poster with things they've learned and maybe present that to their peers. My son did one of those projects in primary school quite a few years ago now. And the teacher asked to every child, but they told me later, how do you know that you know that thing, whatever they said? And what the teacher was trying to teach the kids was, can you trust the source of where you got that information from? How do you know that the thing that you accepted as truth is actually truth? Now, that is very much the point and the reason of the question that you raised. How do you know that what truth to follow? This is the crux of why we have the tools, technology today in 2026 available to make that easier for us. If we all agree at the start of a project that using a particular tool that everybody is comfortable using, we can open that can of worm maybe another time, but if everybody's comfortable using that particular tool and feels that their data, their information is safe, their interests, their IP is protected, as long as they can trust that that's the case, then they will use the tool. that will then create a single source of truth, even if it's for a specific element of those 6 levers. If you're all using the same tool to report on cost and put the cost data in because you trust that tool, then that becomes the source of truth for cost, providing that everybody has updated their respective information at that point in time. And that's where real time comes a little bit a challenge. Real time exists. Yeah, you type something in a computer and it's there and somebody else can see it and use it. But it's only real time after you've typed it in. So my real time might be now at I'm in Melbourne, Australia, so 2:42 p.m. and I might be looking for something and it's not there, or it's giving me a picture. It says everything is green. My dashboard looks, everything is green. Perfect. In 10 minutes time, you, Suhaimi, provide your update of your job in the system in real time. And one of my metrics goes amber or maybe even red. That real time is reality that we live in because of the tools that we're using. That doesn't mean my 242 snapshot was wrong or an untruth. It was still the truth. It was just the picture truth. It is like the snapshot in time. Your truth was at 252 because that's when you updated everything. But as long as we agree that we're all using the same tool, we're all using the same platform, we all like that tool, that platform, and agree that that is going to be the source of truth because we trust it, we rely on it, we do our own reporting on it, then that's where that comes from. So that's how you know that you know. If that tool says something, that dashboard says something, therefore it's truth. The one thing that you have to agree on is, when do you take the snapshot? Is that your 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.? My 6 p.m. Because we're across different time zones, we might need to agree that beforehand. It's just like we close the day's worth of work at your 6 p.m., which means I have to wait till 8 p.m. or something like that, or 9 p.m. to see the close of day. But it's still same truth. And that's when it comes back down to people, process, and technology. You need to have all three agreed and aligned to be able to rely on that truth that comes out of it.
And I think perhaps the second part of the question, perhaps I shouldn't have combined them, was how do you communicate negative project performance data to
Yes.
stakeholders?
Quick and honestly is maybe the easiest answer. It's like a band-aid, rip it off and get it on with it. Yeah. So it's an interesting question because things will happen on projects. Good things and bad things. More positive, less positive. Maybe you should use those words. Things will happen on projects. We all know that. That's the nature of the beast, the nature of the industry that we're in. Delivering that news should be delivered based on facts and figures. This is what happened. We collectively made these decisions and it turned out that was wrong. We might have made that decision 6 months ago, 9 months ago, it doesn't matter. It has now proven that that wasn't the right thing to do. We may have made that 6 minutes ago. It could also be the case that it wasn't the right thing. But if we are all collectively agreeing that that was the best decision we could have made at that point in time, we can now also collectively agree on how we're going to deal with the impact of that decision. Yeah, and it swings and roundabouts. Sometimes you make a really good decision, sometimes maybe not so good. But the worst thing to do is not tell anybody, not bringing it to the table, waiting and hoping and praying that the thing goes away, or as dare I say, politicians do, hoping and praying something bigger, worse happens, so their thing gets hidden somewhere else. But we don't want to do that. We want to be able to just go to the meeting and go to the customers as like, hey, remember this thing? It backfired. Sorry. Let's sit down. Here are the options. And it's just good communication practice. It's almost nothing to do with project controls. It's just respect and trust. And it's the old adage, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. Yeah, it's like this thing fell over, didn't stand up. Here are the options to make it work. We can do one, two, or three. The impact of one is we're going to be delayed. The impact of two is we're going to have extra costs. The impact of three is we're going to have to change the scope.
Yep.
Which one? What do you want to do? Or do we do a little bit of all of it and make a combination out of it? And let's have that discussion. And that's where project controls comes in with its six levers again. Bad news. What is the bad news? Where's the impact? What are the options to mitigate or minimize that impact?
And it comes back to what you started off with. You gotta trust that, the data. You trust that he's not BSing you, and therefore the bad news, it can be bad news, it can be good news. But I mean, even if you've got good news, if the guy doesn't trust you, you deliver it. It's not gonna be accepted either, right?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's got to be and good and bad. And hopefully that came clear out of the presentation. Good and bad is a very different perception.
Right.
Yeah. So the bad news, Mr. Owner, is I'm going to have to charge you a variation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad news for me. It's a contract. It's great news for me. It's extra money.
Right.
Extra
Different
money is
lens,
extra
right?
profit. Yeah. Yes. So the lens is also very different. The bad news for you, Mr. Contractor, I now need this hospital wing available a month earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Is that bad news? Because you now change the scope, you now change the parameters. Maybe I can charge you a variation. Again, it comes down to how do you use the levers of the six control levers, time, cost, scope, risk, resources, and sustainability, to make sure that the impact of whatever is happening is viewed in the right way for both parties, for both sides. How does that work? What's the impact of that? Delivery side versus owner side.
Now, in your earlier question too about definition of truth, you mentioned that single source of truth, and it brought me to this question, right? We all are now, even in IBEW this year, will the strong focus on artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence to make it work, make sure that you're not getting crap data. You need to have that quality data. So, you haven't talked about AI here. Is there any capabilities that can support your Project Control 6.0? And is there, within Oracle itself, is there any AI features being prepared on your roadmap?
I can't tell you what Oracle is preparing other than what you can all look up in the press or what we're doing. Lots of things are happening in AI, and lots of things will continue to happen and come out released by Oracle and many others in industry. Just going back on a statement you made, AI is great. I mean, it's maybe not so great if it puts you feel threatened, or you've maybe recently been made redundant or something like that because AI in inverted comma has taken over your job. So will AI change the way we look at things? Yes. The biggest challenge with AI, particularly in construction engineering, is, well, there's really two. One is, can the AI or has the AI been trained on your data for you? We started this presentation or the slide deck with an owner looks at things through a different lens than a deliverer. So that already creates two levels of truth, two lenses, two different data sets, two different biases in a data set. Even if you're looking at the same data set of one project, there is a bias towards an owner or a deliverer. So what has the AI been trained on your side? And how relevant is that data? How recent is that data? Because data from 2015, 2016, 10 years ago, has less weight than the one from 2025 from last year. Yeah, because the world has changed and everything like that. So, what is your data? Can you rely on that, trust that? Is that clear? Yes. You might be able to control that. You can control that. You can do something about it. And you will know, even you know the shortcomings of your data set. The best strength of AI is that if that data set can be augmented by an AI that has also looked at the world data set and can interpret that data set suitably to your situation. That last one is very, very difficult because of who owns that data, where has it been trained, what bias, what hallucinations come out of it, all those kind of valid questions and risks and challenges means that the AI and the answer an AI may give or an AI agent may give to the question you ask it may or may not be suitable for your project. And this is why you'll hear many parties and many people talking about human in the loop. So always make sure that you don't make a decision based on an answer that an AI gave you. Make sure there is a human in the loop somewhere that does a check on that. But will AI change things? Yes. But I think the initial thing is more advanced analytics. I make reference to what if scenarios. A what if scenario is easy to say, it's not that easy to achieve because of all those data. And let's go back 5, 10 years time when everybody was talking about benchmarking. How hard was benchmarking? It was incredibly hard because there was always reasons why a particular number wasn't the right number for my particular situation because it comes from a different jurisdiction. It was a different contract. It was a different scope. It was a different time of year, whatever that is. It was always hard to do it. That hasn't gone away. That problem is still there because in construction engineering, by and large, we build snowflakes. Every single project is always unique. So I know that didn't quite answer the question or give you any heads up of any exciting AI that might be coming out. There will be exciting AI that comes out, lots of it being very specific and very niche, doing certain things very, very quick, very, very efficiently. Other AIs that will have more of that holistic view. All I'm saying is get your own data in order for starters, because that's the only and realistic step you can take right now for AI. It is going to come, but focus on the here and now. Focus on the 6 control levers and try and use the data and analytics that you have and can do to make that better.
And I think you touched on some of the very key themes that we will be raising in IBEW this year, right? Can you trust your data? Keeping the human in the loop. In fact, that will be one of our keynotes. Now we have about 5 minutes left, and I will just take 2 more questions. One question here is, what is Oracle doing, or how does Oracle help with lean project delivery? And related to that, I guess, because lean also, that's about last planner systems, also talk about communicating effectively, across the value chain. So how do you then lead effectively when communication speed and responsiveness differ across cultures? So one is, how does Oracle help with lean? And the second, from your perspective, how would you advise on leading effectively across different cultures?
Right, let me take the last question first, leading across different cultures. The answer is very much the same as what I said before. Make sure you have a clear understanding of who the people are, what their roles are, what processes we are going to do, and what technology we're going to be using. So people, process, and technology. That's the fundamental basis of the success. And that spans across regions, across borders, across cultures. Now, people management and how you speak to people, that is still very culturally nuanced, and that's not going to change when you're dealing with people in Japan versus America or Singapore and Australia. There are just those kind of things that you're going to have to deal with. And that's just a person-to-person type relationship. So that was the last question. The first question was about what Oracle does in this space. We do a lot. And I don't want to turn this into a sales pitch, so I won't. But please look at Oracle Construction Engineering. Look that up. We have what we call an end-to-end set of solutions from ideation through to handover when it comes to construction engineering. We can support all the processes. We don't have a solution for everything. Example, we don't have design authoring tools, but we can ingest and push out data and information to the relevant tools. We have all the relevant integrations that you might need. But what we can provide is that trusted layer of reliable tools that give you that truth, that data, that specific single source of truth for a particular data set. That could be scheduling, that could be cost, that could be the scope, the collaboration that happens on a project, that could be the risk, that could be sustainability metrics. We can create that. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have it all in one place. I just want to be very clear on that, that a single source of truth doesn't mean everything is in one place. It just means everything has its rightful place, and everybody agrees that location is its rightful place. So you can still have things in there as long as they can integrate, as long as they can talk to each other, as long as you have something that connects that at a platform level. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be one location.
It doesn't have to be one location as long as wherever it exists is the same piece of information.
It's the same for everybody. Yeah, you don't want duplications or multiple locations. My schedule is held here, your schedule is held over there. That's not a single source of truth. But if we both work into a cloud version on the same schedule, we democratize that schedule. You have your bits, I have my bits. That location, wherever that cloud may be, whoever that is hosted by, but the best is obviously if you go to Oracle. I had to say that.
That's the plug right there.
Just had to do it. No, but all joking aside, that becomes then the single source of truth. Yeah. It doesn't mean that that schedule play data needs to be sitting in the exact same place where the cost data sit. It doesn't. As long as the two talk, as long as the two are connected, as long as we're clear at what points they are connecting and for what purpose, it's okay that they're not in the same cloud location or the same. Okay, as long as we understand that, and that comes back to the people, process, and the technology.
Right. And this also kind of reminds me of the masterclass we held with you last year. We talked about, with the right kind of data, you can make decisions at the speed of lightning. You're using F1 as an example last year.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, that's not going to go away. That's not change. We can still do that. And this is all about the right data in the hands of the right people to make the right decisions.
Right. Thank you very much, Roya. And that brings us to the end of today's masterclass. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you walked away learning with something new, especially about that people, process, and technology across the 6 different levers for project controls. And Roya, any last words for our audience here today?
Just look up Oracle Construction Engineering and we can help you with some answers. Reach out if you have any more questions.
All right. Thank you, Rohia. And a very good afternoon to you back there in Sydney. Was it right?
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Thank you.
Melbourne. And we'll see you again soon. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's masterclass. Do join us for our next masterclass on the 22nd of April with Camfield. Do follow our LinkedIn and our social media channels to keep updated with the latest masterclasses and developments in BEX Asia and IBEW. Till then, have a good long weekend for those of you who have a Good Friday off this week. Take care, and I'll see you again. Goodbye.